Just want to say before the show starts, the Troy Show is a listener discretion advised show. We're fair, we're balanced here, everyone gets a voice. We can't quite control exactly what that voice is going to be, so please keep that in mind as you listen to the show. Any business or organization mentioned on the show is not a sponsor of the Troy Show, nor is it affiliated unless otherwise stated. The Troy Show is not an official representation of the city of Troy, Ohio, USA, or the government thereof. This is Troy on Air. Some nights it comes in hotter than I like, and some nights it's too quiet. I can't figure it out. One of these days I'll figure it out. I saw we mentioned last week, the parking attendant is out there circling like a hawk again. He's outside. He said a extension vehicle was over the line.
Over the line!
Huh? I'm sorry, Smokey. You were over the line. That's a foul.
One of these days, hopefully they'll get it marked out there for people, so maybe they know in the future. This is the Troy Show, your weekly recap of Troy, local news in the area. We've got a special guest in the studio tonight. Things are starting to finally balance out again. There is life back in the downtown. I know, Nathan, you and I have been walking around a little bit out there, and it's nice to see people out and about in the downtown getting used again, cars parking down there. Business seems to be swirling and booming down there again.
Oh, it's great.
I know you mentioned to me the other day, it was nice to actually see sports playing out there at Noop Lake.
Yeah.
But thankfully it's dried up. They only had about one spell this year, thankfully. Usually they have a lot more water out there, but that dried up pretty quick. Well, if you want to get a hold of us at any time during the show, you can always chime in via email, beautifultroyshow@gmail.com. We'll be opening up our call lines here in the news portion of the show after our special guest tonight. Facebook.com/Beautiful Troy Show is the official Facebook page of the show, which, if you're watching this live, is where you'll be seeing this or pre-recorded. And, of course, you can always get in on the conversation a little bit further, see what the other citizens are thinking over at Facebook.com/groups/Troy, Ohio citizens. In the studio with us tonight, the executive director of the Troy Chamber of Commerce is Kathi Roetter. Kathi, how are you tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming up here and going to talk a little bit tonight about opening business back up. So before we get into that, before the elephant in the room of COVID-19, let's talk a little bit about what does the Troy Chamber do for those who maybe have a business, maybe they're new to business and they want to know what their local chamber has to offer. What were you guys doing before COVID-19 and back in the regular world?
Back in the regular world, that seems so far away.
Yeah.
So what the chamber does is we support local business. First and foremost, what we do is advocacy. So we advocate for local business with our local elected officials, state elected officials, and then national elected officials. And then the other big thing that we do is networking. We run a lot of events so that businesses can network and connect to other businesses and hopefully increase their business. And then on top of that, we're always promoting Troy.
Because the chamber is a membership style. So you have to be a member. Obviously, there's a fee that comes with membership. So what's some of the benefits business folks can expect when they join in on the chamber?
We have a number of benefits from the events that you can attend, but we also have discount programs. So we have programs to help businesses save on their energy, their cell phones. I mean, you name it, anything that we can do to help their bottom line so that they can make more money.
One of the cool things, and I got to witness this firsthand, the owners over at JoJo Vapes here in Troy and Sydney invited me over to just grab a little bit of video footage. We were going to do an interview with them there that we had posted for our Sunday special on the show. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. And they were donating some hand sanitizer that day. And you guys were also out there doing the live streams that you've been doing throughout this kind of COVID area. Technically, they're grand reopening.
Exactly. Yeah. So prior to COVID, we did a lot of ribbon cuttings. And so we haven't been able to do that. And then as our businesses had to close for a while, it was like, okay, what can we do to celebrate them? So we're doing ribbon tyings. And that's what you got to witness that day. So we're tying ribbons. One ribbon represents the community, one the business. And we're being a little cheesy in saying that we are tying the community back together one business at a time.
Well, I'm ready to see we're getting word. I don't know if that's just your connection or not. I don't know if the stream, it should be streaming out. We're getting a black screen on the stream real quick. We'll let's take a quick break here. No, it's showing it down there on this one. Now go ahead and pull it up on your phone real quick, Nathan. It looks like we have a live feed. I see her down there. So is it on your phone? Are we live? It's kind of the never-ending quest to find the perfect settings where you can just click the button and go live. Yeah, that's if it's multiple sources not popping up, then that would be an issue. But I've got it showing me a little video here in this box.
I'm just glad it's not just us.
Yeah.
You're a professional having
you've
problems.
been doing
so-
the live streams out and
Yes.
about in the community, and so you've kind of had to utilize Facebook Live a little bit more, and that's kind of thankfully a feature that Facebook's been focusing on this year for your circumstances especially, because you've been able to go directly to the businesses and ask them what they're about. What are they doing to protect their consumers throughout the COVID-19 and all the guidelines? So what's that kind of been like for the chamber to adapt to this situation where suddenly, now more than ever, being in the chambers is a rather important thing, and making sure that those folks who are in the chamber get to thrive coming out of this? So what's that been like adapting to Facebook Live and different ideas?
Well, we were using Facebook Live prior to COVID. We would live stream our ribbon cuttings, but not nearly as interactive as what we're doing now. So we just had to pivot quickly and realize, what can we do to get the word out? We started off with me weekly or daily sometimes doing live streams so that we were letting people know what was going on with the governor's orders. Trying to keep the community safe and also calm because people were getting really upset. And then very quickly we realized that some of the businesses were starting to open. So what could we do that has instant impact? I mean, we could do content and just do a picture, but the video goes so much further. It gets them a lot more reach.
Yeah, I saw you guys were even doing little graphics on that while you're out there, because
We
you guys
do.
just have a phone out there.
We do, but we use a program. Yeah,
Okay.
we use a program called Switcher.
Switcher.
Yeah, so it allows us to put the little banner at the bottom and logos on. And
Yeah, because we've got that little tripod over there, and we've got a spaceship attached to it. And I was watching that, how are they doing the banners? And that's really a cool idea, because we might have to look into that. So Switcher, keep that in
Switcher.
mind, Nate.
Got it.
Video Switcher, look up Switcher. But I did see this. This is over here in Kay's Diner's window. I'll read it. But it says, "We cannot afford to confide the safety of our country to the passions or to the panic of any foreign nation which may be facing some desperate crisis. We must be independent. We must be free. We must preserve our full latitude and discretion of choice." And that was a quote by Winston Churchill, and that's up over in the window of Kay's Diner. There's also been some little rainbows they've put up in the window.
Yes.
Kind of with the theme of Troy Strong. I saw one of the
Absolutely.
historic houses here on South Market Street had put up, what is it, Pride or something like that they put up, or Be Kind.
Be
That's
kind.
what it was, yeah.
Yes, on South Market Street.
What's the little teddy bears in the windows? I've seen them all the way down South Market Street.
That was a bear hunt.
Okay.
I think actually the Southwest Historic District, I think some of them put it together. There's a book called Going on a Bear Hunt. And so the idea was to go around your neighborhood. And so they started it. And then actually the downtown businesses did it also.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
I didn't know if that had to do with a message of we'll get through this,
No,
or if that
I
was
think it was
something
just-
previous.
I think it was just so that kids, because they had to be at home and with parents, had something to do to get out and enjoy the weather and that kind of thing.
So what was it like having to kind of slowly reopen, and slowly businesses that were part of the chamber would get to open at different dates? That's kept you pretty busy, I'd assume.
It's kept us very busy. We probably do a ribbon tying just about every day, sometimes 3 a day. So it has definitely kept us busy. I think that's one of the things that kind of changed for us. I think that we had been more in the office and been internal working for our members. And so COVID has really forced us to be out in the community and to be visible and help them to be visible.
Well, it's good that people are getting an idea of what the chamber is about, and you're able to utilize these new technologies. I'm assuming the red coat suit cleaning bill has gone up over here at Sunset Cleaners,
Yes.
having to get them out of the closet more often. But
Yes.
that's a good sign, because that means that people are bouncing back from this. I know there's actually new stores that have gone up. I've
Yes.
seen the Your CBD store's gone in, the Trojan Horse Pizza's gone
Yeah.
in, so there's new businesses coming out of this. Because the unfortunate part is a couple businesses did have to go away for now. Maybe they'll get to rebuild in
Yeah.
the future, but it's nice to see that, where sometimes things sadly die, life also grows with it.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad to see that that's a product coming out of this that looks like people are going to be bouncing back. And
Yes.
we're glad that you're up here telling us a little bit about the Chamber of Commerce here. Again, if you're just tuning in with us, Hopefully so. Hopefully the screen is on like it's supposed to be. The executive director of the Troy, Ohio Chamber of Commerce, Kathi Roetter, up here tonight talking with us a little bit about getting businesses back in action. Let's talk a little bit about, let's go back to the tornado, because I kind of want to probe your mind about how the construction, is there anything that's kind of affected the chamber, or is it business as usual there?
It really didn't affect the chamber. The funny thing is that my office, my window faces South Cherry Street. So that was the only damage we had, luckily, but it blew my window in and
Really?
all of my papers all over my office. But
Because
nothing.
you guys are in the Bakehouse quadrant, right?
Yeah, we're in the 405 building, so just right above Troy Sports Center.
So your backs are kind of towards the directional pattern that tornado
Yeah,
took.
it was. Yeah, it's interesting though that there was damage in the alley behind Leaf and Vine.
Yeah.
But just my window. But it has made me be a little more organized coming out of
bet.
the tornado because there were
Couple more paper clips.
papers everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I was fortunate here that we didn't have much damage at all, at least I ever heard about.
Yeah.
I was sitting a couple rooms back, and that's where there's a skylight in this building. And I used to have this desk in there, and I was actually on the computer with him at the time, and I didn't know what was going on. I've told this story a couple times, but that was something to see.
It was.
And I know, what is it, Grandpa Joe's is taking this opportunity now to remodel
Yes.
because they're redoing the cast building over here.
Yeah.
Nate, go grab some images of that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Unfortunately, we're still trying to set up a way that we can get the feed to our guests so they can see what we're looking at here. But the mayor just posted these earlier, and I thought they were really
Yeah.
cool. Go to the cast design so that way they can see. Or we'll start with this one, whichever
Okay.
one. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is in progress right now. They've started to paint the building to, what is it, navy blue? I think they're trying to harken back to Civil War colors.
Yeah, it's the colors of the uniforms.
Of the uniforms at the time, because there's going to be a little bit of gold streaking there at the bottom along the strips of the building. And then they're going to, there's the finish shot right here. And it's this really nice modern look to it. They're taking the 1950s kind of banner, or what's the word I'm looking for? Awning out of the way there.
Yep.
So we're excited for that. There's a lot
gonna
of
look great.
flourishing things down here in the downtown. Now, how many members did you say that you had kind of in this area, to give you guys an idea of how much work the chamber has on any given day?
We have 450 members.
450.
Yeah. So it keeps us busy.
And this is something people don't really know about the chamber, is you don't have to be from Troy to be part of the chamber. You can kind of network with other cities.
That is correct. We are the Troy Area Chamber of Commerce. So we have members south of Dayton all the way to Lima. So if you do business in Troy, you want to connect with other Troy businesses. So everyone is welcome.
Gotcha. And that's what kind of helps other people from other cities get involved with it and come
Absolutely.
out and kind of network a little bit better. So I see this all the time because people kind of have this confusion in Troy sometimes. They think anything Troy is related specifically to the government of Troy.
Yes.
So if maybe you could clear up the role of the chamber within the chain of command.
We are completely independent.
Gotcha.
They are a chamber member. We obviously work very well with them because we promote the city, but they do not fund us like they do other organizations in town. So we're completely independent. We do not have representation on our board. So our board is business owners, and they make the direction and give us the go-ahead for whatever we're doing in the community.
How many folks are on that board?
We have 16.
16. So you
Yeah.
got 16 business owners.
16 businesses representing anywhere from, we have a realtor, so a contractor, all the way up to, I think our largest is either Upper Valley Medical Center or Clopay. So we have someone representing both of those companies also.
And where, if they want to look a little bit further into it and maybe get a visual of exactly who's all on the board, the names, etc., where's a good website address for them?
TroyOhioChamber.com.
TroyOhioChamber.com. Can't make it simpler than that.
It's
I have
pretty
people
easy.
up here and they go, well, I got 3 different things, and it's this,
It's pretty
slash
easy.
this.
And you will find us that way on all of the social media platforms.
Okay, well, that's a good way to get in touch. It's very simple there. Just look up Troy Ohio Chamber, and you'll find them there. And Kathi, again, is the executive director of the chamber that we're speaking here tonight. Well, I think that helps clear it up a little bit, because I know I'll run across articles or comment sections across various social media where why are they funding this and why are they doing this? And it's because you guys have a close working relationship because you're part of the city, but you are a separate entity.
We
So
are
I kind of
separate.
wanted just to get that information out there to those who don't
Yes.
maybe know that or haven't gotten as involved with their community and would like to. So
I would say, too, sometimes we disagree with the city.
yeah, that is possible.
That is possible.
You might not know it in today's day and era, but it's possible to disagree with someone or agree to disagree for the greater good of progress. So Kathi, thanks so much for swinging by today and taking some time out of this late night program that we do here. And I'm glad we got you rescheduled. We told our folks listening last week that we were hoping to get back to the studio, but then the protest or the demonstration broke out in downtown here. And, I wanted to make sure I do this with all my guests, that they get the full attention that they deserve and they get to hear, have their voice heard. So we appreciate it, Kathi. Thanks for swinging by tonight. And we look forward to seeing what the Chamber has to offer in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. We'll be right back with more on The Troy Show, folks. And welcome back to the Troy Show here, live every Monday night at 7 p.m. And then, of course, made available for playback afterwards on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Beautiful Troy Show. We just got done talking with the executive director of the Troy, Ohio Chamber of Commerce, Kathi Roetter. And we do thank Kathi for coming up here and telling folks a little bit about the Chamber of Commerce here in Troy, how they've been navigating COVID-19, how they've been working with their businesses that are members to make sure that they all come out of this back in business and better, I believe is the tagline in a lot of these.
Signs popping up all over town.
That's all the businesses have them in their windows. I think those were donated by Corey Graphics, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct.
And you'll see those in the windows throughout various businesses down here. And I'm not sure. I did forget to ask her if that was something related to the chamber or not, if Corey Graphics just did that on their own. But that is kind of the running theme, is back in business and better. So we do thank Kathi once again for coming up here and spending a couple minutes with us. And we like to make sure that we are involved with the city as much as possible, because we know that we have gripes and whatnot, things that we talk about. We're going to get into those tonight. But we don't shy away from things here. I don't, it's a tough job to do, because obviously in a local setting, you'll say something and everyone's frustrated with it. But we're just here to discuss ideas, and I like to create and do what I can with the talent that's been given to me, I suppose. And we do appreciate everyone tuning in tonight as well. BeautifulTroyShow@gmail.com if you want to get in contact with us. Phone lines now open, 937-696-7572. 696-7572 if you've got anything that you want to call in and talk about tonight. Is this the first article that we've got up here tonight?
Sure is.
Yep, this is it. So we'll dive into the news here with our video switcher, Nathan. Piqua City Commission has responded to protest and the residents in Piqua. So let me pull this up on my screen here. We're still kind of working with getting this all set up here. I mean, we've made a lot of progress as far as getting a workflow set up here for the show. But the Piqua City Commission on Tuesday commented on the recent protest held in downtown Piqua on Sunday, as well as responded to questions from residents and discussed plans for the 4th of July holiday. Mayor Chris Lee talked about how he felt he was able to be an example to his kids during the protest on Sunday, as well as commended Larry Hamilton of Piqua for advocating an ownership identity for 30 years. I want to thank everybody that came down to the walk on Sunday. It was enlightening, Lee said. 3 of my oldest kids came down there with me. They're biracial kids, but they identify with their dad, and they were very proud to be there and part of it. They feel with George Floyd and his family, and they feel all of the wrongness in that. Lee said people are beginning to take an ownership identity in regard to promoting racial equality. For 30 years, Larry Hamilton has been preaching this, and people are starting to understand. We have to accept all people in this community, and the people that came out Sunday accepted all people. I understand from a police perspective that police lives matter, but if the police aren't doing their jobs and they're not doing it the right way, they have to be held accountable. Lee said he expects the police in the George Floyd case will be held accountable, saying that it says that man did not have to die. And I think that's the larger issue at hand. I think that's why everyone's upset. The commission responds here as well, and then I'll talk a little bit more about Chris Lee's comments there. But the commission and city officials also responded to residents' questions, which were submitted prior to the meeting and read off by Lee. The first was from Jamie Smith, who expressed frustration over having to pay a month of base charges on utilities while living in her residence for a week. Finance Director Cynthia Holtzapfel said the base's fees help cover all fixed costs, such as reconnection and setup fees for the different utilities. Cynthia also said it's the same with every customer and not prorated by the days in the month. They were asked about the possibility of declaring racism a public health crisis. Says, I see the state is discussing this, but change starts at home. Okay, well, here's Jay Roman's comments. This is from the Daily Call. It says, then Jay Roman of Piqua suggested the commission meetings be reopened to the public. Huff explained the city is still having to follow orders from the state, which limits mass gatherings, including meetings to 10 people. Well, yeah, of course, but it's like at this point, I think what they're wanting, if I'm not mistaken by this, and I'm not speaking for Ray here like the Piqua Daily Call likes to, or Jay, it seems to me what they want is at a local level, folks to step up and say, okay, we've had enough. You can go socially distance at any business that you want. Why are the cities not back in their offices yet? Why aren't they in a place for more open public comment where you can show up to the meeting and talk in person? Because as of right now, I don't believe, other than the submitted questions that you can submit prior to the meeting, there's no live interaction with the meeting on Zoom or YouTube or wherever they're doing it at. which makes sense to me having to do this show each week. We don't monitor our Facebook comments because they come down the pipeline so quick and so plentiful. You know, one person can type 10 questions at once, and I can't possibly respond to that. So I get what they're saying about, you know, not being able to do comments during the live meeting. However, that time has passed. I know they had to jump into action and pass resolutions to allow them to do these virtual meetings, but it's time for them to get back into the city halls, back into the city council meetings, the commissioners' meetings, the planning meetings. It's time to reopen it to the public is what they're saying. And I know Gary Huff up there is going to huff and puff about everything that he can in order to, from what I've heard, avoid the citizens. But that is why it's important that we have access to these people, because they have to be held accountable. And there's a lot of great folks throughout our local area who do just that. So it doesn't surprise me that his stance is to not reopen and follow the state guidelines or whatever the case is. But by all means, go anywhere else you want in Piqua, Troy, Tip City, wherever. Practice your social distancing, and you're more than welcome to go there. But when it comes to the city halls, the red tape and the cogs of government operating slowly as usual. Now, I want to go back up to Chris Lee's statement here. You don't have to pull it back up.
Okay.
I'll just read it. But when Chris Lee was talking about, let's see. Oh, here it is, where he says, I get the perspective that police lives matter. Because from what I've gathered in our local area, I won't speak for the nation here on this one, but for our local area, what these young leaders have been requesting, I mean, people calling them kids, I've called them kids before, but I think a better term for them would be young leaders who showed up and got on the picnic tables, who helped to organize the rally at Richards Chapel off of McCaig Avenue, who spoke openly, honestly, held no punches while they were speaking about events past. The protest unfolded in Troy. I believe that was that last week, right?
Yep.
They've been speaking open and honestly about this, and no one, from what I could tell, was saying that all lives didn't matter, that white lives didn't matter, that police lives didn't matter. No one was saying that. From the groups that I was there, that you and I were there for 4 hours, that a lot of the news outlets weren't there or in the thick of it for a long time, down there actually documenting what happened. None of them were saying that. There were a few times where some All Lives Matter folks who were with them, who were marching with them, who did agree with them, who do believe this is sad what we've seen unfold, where they wanted to make that argument, and it was always met. It was never met with hate. It was met with dialogue. And it was met with, yes, we understand that all lives matter. We're not saying that they don't matter. What we're saying is right now, in the limelight, we're having a problem in the black community of them being victims of police brutality. Now, me personally, I make the argument that no one should have to suffer police brutality. I'm completely with them on that. I believe there's a lot of training that needs reworked with our police department. So sure, Blue Lives Matter. But that is also something, when you put that badge on, when you take the job, that comes with it. It's an understood thing. It's I don't really get wrapped up into any of these particular causes myself, but I just want to make sure that the people who are speaking voice that. And what Chris Lee, the mayor of Piqua here, I believe he served 23 years, if I'm not mistaken, on the Piqua Police Department, a well-known figure in that community. And he usually speaks pretty off the cuff. He doesn't, from what I've noticed when he's out at these things, doesn't have like a prepared speech or a teleprompter or anything like that. And I think that's what people are looking for in their elected officials. Came out and did what everyone's been wanting. Acknowledge the problem, address it head on, and separate the two. Separate the good officers from the bad officers. Separate the peaceful protesters from the not so peaceful protesters. Address the fact that what happened is tragic. Name the names. Say the taglines. Represent everyone's voice because you are an elected official. And he showed up. He organized. They filed the paperwork for this one, and they shut the block down, the quadrant area, for 2 hours. They had from 1 o'clock to 3 p.m., of which we were there for the whole thing. And then we caught a nice bowl of soup over at Susie's Big Dipper there.
Very good.
What you had the chili.
I had a good bowl of chili.
I had the potato bacon cheddar, I believe is what they called it. Nice mini scoop of that apple cider ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great day. Everyone, and there was a little tension at the end, and then the mayor came through and made sure that everyone's voice got to be heard. A lady that had spoke earlier in the event came along as well, and she made sure that things weren't being blown out of proportion. Because the issue that arose at the end of the Piqua, I would say demonstration, because that's technically what it was. It wasn't necessarily a protest. It was a speaking rally / demonstration where they all kneeled for 9 minutes in honor of George Floyd, and to give people an idea of how long 9 minutes with someone's knee on the back of your neck would be. And I don't think anyone here is arguing that George Floyd was the most perfect man on the planet. I don't think anyone here was arguing that George Floyd shouldn't have been investigated for the alleged bad check that was passed or $20 bill or whatever he was doing. And now we've gotten more reports about, drugs in the system and whatnot. And it does not mean that he should have been killed for that or held to the ground for 9 minutes, in my opinion. What kind of police work is that when simple things or someone's having a rough time in their life are greeted with the threat of death just because of training? Now, I want to go over and I want to see the officer's perspective from this as well, because in Piqua, at the end, when the tensions rose up, I believe it was two folks there were calling out the police for not kneeling when they had been told earlier that some would kneel and some would stand for the safety, by the event organizer, for the safety of those there. It would be that some officers would kneel with them to kind of appease and ease the tensions and show that, yes, the Piqua Police Department is on their side. A police department, might I add, that has shown nothing but support for this since when it started, and a mayor that's shown nothing but support for this since it started. Blocked off roads for their citizens and made sure that they were escorted safely to and from point A and point B at the first one, and made sure that they were surrounded with a presence to make sure anyone who wanted to cause them harm was protected at the end of the day. But apparently all of the officers ended up standing at the end of this, but my back was turned. Now, you flipped the camera around, didn't you, Nathan?
Yeah, I did.
So
I'm not sure. I couldn't see it, so I didn't see if any of the cops were kneeling or not.
Yeah, I haven't been able to review the footage or watch it to see if any of them were kneeling, if that was a truthful statement that all of them stood. But let's go into the mind of a police officer now. Because here's the biggest problem that I have with this scenario of folks blaming cops. I, for one, I do not just defend police because they are police. I take it on a case-by-case basis. I have an idea of how police and public officials should act in the line of duty. That's neither here nor there now. But what I'm saying is, in this scenario, let's go take a look at their perspective on this. So their perspective would be, tactically, to keep these people safe, the people that I am paid to protect and serve, would be to stand at this moment in case anyone came along and wanted to cause them harm. If you're truly a racist or a supremacist, I don't think they would have shown up. What do you think?
Well, obviously, not the entire Piqua police force was there.
Yeah, and it's not to say that there's not a bad apple or two on there. And I'm not even going to say bad apple or two.
I'm willing to bet that the ones that came were probably the ones that supported it the most. I'm sure it was a voluntary thing. I mean, whether you're, sitting somewhere watching for speeders or coming to watch after this protest. So
I'm just looking at it from the tactical perspective that I know a lot of these guys are trained with. And maybe that's a problem with some of our training, is that it's too militarized in a sense.
Well, a lot of police officers have been in the military, so.
Yes, it's a place for them to ease back into society when they've done with their tour or coming out of the military, which is completely different than civilian life. So this is usually the job that they view, or security work, as the best option for those coming out of the service. But then those in the service, I would assume, are used to dealing with a clear and present threat, or maybe not such a clear and present threat at times, overseas. So maybe that's where we see some of these instances of local police departments, or whatever the case, or those that don't want to kneel. Now, another lady came along that had spoke earlier when these tensions had rose up and made the point that they don't have to protest the way that you see fit to protest. They don't have to kneel. Them being here is their sign of support. That's how they're protesting. To which they didn't quite like hearing that, and I understand. They're trying to think, well, what's the simple act of kneeling? Well, you have to understand that some people view kneeling as a completely, entirely different act that doesn't fit with their code. It's not that they don't support you. And we need to have more dialogue like this, more understanding and perspective. That way we can move on to address the real issues and not get caught up in these little, well, you didn't do this, so I don't feel like you support me. Meanwhile, they're here making sure that you are able to say what you want to say at the end of the day, safely and serving you. And so what the mayor, Chris Lee of Piqua, decided to do is once he got up there and took the bullhorn, they had a bigger one this time, thankfully, and he got up there and spoke and said, I know they didn't quite do what you had in mind, but please, by all means, approach these guys. Go talk to these guys. Go have a dialogue with these officers that we have trained. And from what I've been told and from the very little I've been able to witness of the Piqua Police Department, that seems to be a large priority for them, is to make sure that their police are serving and protecting their citizens at the end of the day. And in fact, I believe I think it was Jay. I don't think I got to speak to the mayor that day, so it'd probably be Jay. I think he pointed out that
Yeah, it was Jay. I know what you're talking about.
there was an officer who approached one of the demonstrators instead of the demonstrator having to approach the officer to start the dialogue. So the officer took time, someone who hates their guts, everything they're about, their skin color, etc., took the time to go over there and talk to this demonstrator. And I said all that allegedly, supposedly.
Some very heavy sarcasm.
Yes, very heavy sarcasm. My voice is flat at times, so read between the lines on some things that I say. So that was kind of my takeaway from the event. Now, a lot of people spoke passionately there. A lot of people raised a lot of good points. Some of it I felt was more or less hearsay. But then what came out of this, right? Okay, so you got all this great stuff to talk about. We've got all this great stuff that we got to break down. We got to see so many different perspectives and sides and individual local stories of people impacted by whatever it is they felt they were impacted by. Talking about this national story and telling the folks there how it impacts them on a local level. We got all that, right, Nathan?
Mm-hmm.
And then the Piqua Daily Call comes out. And let's pull this up. I think it should be Youth Shares Stories of Racial Injustice is the headline coming from the Troy. This was the Troy Daily News.
Yes.
It was the Piqua Daily Call that ran this one, but sometimes they're mirrored like that,
That was
here it is.
That was the incorrect one.
Protesters seek change. That one's from Miami Valley Today. If this is the one article that I didn't pull, because it was very frustrating. I can give you the synopsis of it, essentially. We don't necessarily have to have it. It's just I wanted you to see it in person. Yep, here it is. So pull up the Miami Valley Today, the Protesters Seek Change article.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Did you know this? Miami Valley Today also has their own news website.
Wait, what? There we go.
Yeah, there it is. Completely different. It's a little more updated, at least, thank God, from the Troy Daily News and Piqua Daily Call.
There we are.
So this one is called Protesters Seek Change. And they got a picture here of everyone kneeling for the demonstration of 9 minutes. And so we've got this article's live out to the feed right now, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll start reading it here a little bit. We get down to the bottom of it, because this is kind of the part here. I mean, I suppose they did a good job based off of this style of journalism.
At the very bottom?
Yes, the very bottom there.
Okay.
So it says, Jay Roman of Piqua then spoke, discussing how he saw a white man verbally shout racial slurs and cuss as an 18-year-old girl first of all, put a T in there, at an 18-year-old girl, not as an 18-year-old girl. He didn't verbally shout racist slurs as an 18-year-old girl. It was a grown man.
Oh, how do you know he doesn't identify as an 18-year-old girl?
I won't set myself up for that. But moving on, this gentleman, if I should call him that, this story has been going around. It's technically verified, but at the time they don't have any hard evidence yet. They've been working to see if this was an out-of-towner, someone local, etc. But you get into the gray areas of doxing someone. But the problem was, I think, is there's a report of Mace being present after he started to yell at this girl. We don't know why he was yelling at this girl. She could have just been getting fuel at the Speedway, maybe a snack. I don't know. But the Piqua Daily Call, or Miami Valley Today, runs this story and says that Jay said that he saw a white man verbally shout racial slurs. He never said it. out of these 6-minute speech or so that he made that we have the full coverage of up on the Troy Show's page, facebook.com/Beautiful Troy Show, if you want to go find out and listen for yourself. He never said it. And now they're trying to say that Jay Roman saw this white man verbally, and this could get him in a world of trouble. And if it weren't for our footage, if it weren't for anyone taking video evidence, the camera never lies, they could have railroaded this guy's character and said, well, we got our clicks. Sorry. See ya. The importance of Miami Valley today, those folks who still do the news, the local news, which is important, which means stuff to people. And if it weren't for them doing journalism, we wouldn't have half the stories. We wouldn't know half the things we know about the community. It's a vital role, and we offer you this constructive criticism on the show each week, but you can't be bothered because we're competitors or whatever the case is. We're all working together to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. That's supposed to be the point. It's not an agenda that you have when you show up to capture the most impactful photo or whatever the case is or the best line. Maybe get a voice recorder. I've seen some reporters have voice recorders. Don't just write stuff down in your notes and remember it off of your memory. Actually take what was said and put that in the article. Because you can destroy someone's life with fake journalism when there's no evidence. And thankfully, it didn't come to that in this case. We joke and we have humor. We appreciate what you do at Miami Valley Today. We talk about your articles all the time. We reference your articles. We tell people where they can go read the hard work, most of it, that you've put into these articles. We hold no beef here, per se, other than the gripes that we have. And unfortunately, instead of changing the image, instead of showing people that what we're saying is invalid, you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and we all know what that is the definition of. You can't do that. You can't, at the end of the day, you just can't do that. You can't misrepresent what someone says. And any time on this show, if we find out that we do that, it panics me. It panics me. I'm like, I messed up. I screwed up. If the audio's bad, if we misrepresented what someone said, if I put words in someone's mouth, that panics me. And I do what I can to correct it when it's pointed out to me. When you're on air like this once a week, doing 2 to 3 hours of show, riffing off the top of your head, expressing yourself, giving folks the inside look of life through my eyes, you're bound to say something. You're bound to mess up. And how you handle that afterwards. There's no correction here. I haven't seen a correction article ran. I'll give you an example. The other day, we got short notice because of sleazy media tactics again, from what I could tell, from what I could witness. The other day, they had the Richard Chapel rally over off McKeag. And I had been on the phone for a while talking to someone, and our call screener comes in here and says there's supposed to be a protest today. I said, yeah, I knew there's one at 5:30. It's when it was supposed to go down. She said, no, it's 2:30. So I checked the WHIO article, a distinguished news platform. I said, what did I miss? Was I on the phone too long? Was I not looking at my social media? Because I look at it far too much than I should. But it's to try and keep up and to know everything that I can, to be as informed as I can. And I looked through it, and it looked like they published it at like 1:50. This thing was starting at 2:30. They still didn't have an address for the prayer vigil in Tip City. So I rushed and got my camera together. I got all the equipment together, and I get over to Richard's Chapel. It already started by then. To get video footage, because inevitably they were going to try and spin something again. I don't know how the big media, especially with the city planning this as well as they did with the organizers over there at Richard's Chapel, didn't get wind of this sooner and didn't publish this sooner. But my point is, I made a post on the page saying we are aware of the protest at Richard's Chapel. I think it's just Richard Chapel. I keep throwing an S on there. And we will be over there to give you live coverage soon, so you could see and witness for yourself exactly what was going on. Later, when I got back and had observed the entire scenario and it had all unfolded, I corrected the post that we made saying that earlier we said it was a protest, but in reality it was more of a rally, a speaking event. And no one told me to do that. No one contacted us and said you misrepresented what they were doing. It wasn't a protest. It wasn't a demonstration. It wasn't them marching through the streets. But I knew that it could be construed that way if I didn't correct that, and that it looked like we were trying to get some. So I went on there and I made the correction. I did it of my own fruition. People expect better in the information age where we can fact check. And this year, you are not off to a good start at MVT with gaining the public's trust. Now, I usually joke about this matter, but at this scenario, when you're going to these lengths and you're not offering apologies that I've been told of yet, see how easy that is to let people know that there may be more to the story, but I am not privy to it at the moment. Verify it yourself. I do my best to not put myself in these scenarios. But that reporting is unacceptable, and it needs to stop. So do the typos. I don't know if once a year your ink gets smudged when the river rises. But you need to pay a little bit more attention to these things. So speaking of that rally at Richard Chapel, I'm going to pull that up. This one's from WDTN. I gave them credit on our page for running a good article about the protest that happened in Troy, a more involved one that kind of represented it better. And we'll talk about it here a little bit better because I do want to give credit where credit is due. So this one coming from WDTN, the headline reads, Young African Americans discuss experiences at Troy Church Rally. Several speakers discussed race, police issues, and the death of Minneapolis man. Minneapolis man, is that what they're calling him? The death of Minneapolis man.
George Floyd.
George Floyd.
It continues, yep.
That's kind of a gray area of grammar there. I'll let him slide. During a rally at Richard's Chapel, and they're saying Richard's, I think the building says Richard. I'm not going to harp over an S either. On McCaig Avenue in Troy on Thursday, a crowd of over 100 people listened to remarks from several speakers, including Pastor Kima Cunningham, Troy Police Chief Richard Phelps, Troy High School graduates, there's a couple of them, and the mayor showed up. And this was more of a planned thing. But Nathan, you tell me this, of this image here that the people are seeing on our live stream right now, if you're watching our Facebook video, you tell me this, would this event have happened had they not stepped up for a spontaneous demonstration / protest in the square for 4 hours? Do you think it ever would have got to this point that all it was going to take was a phone call to the mayor's office? Oh, yeah, sure. As long as we can organize and set it up, we'll be out there.
I doubt it. It would have been full of red tape
Yeah.
if there had not been such a public demonstration beforehand, in my opinion.
The only reason I personally believe, because this is a talk show, not a professional news show, the only reason I believe this happened was because of what they did the other night. And they got close. They started to atone for some of the silly stuff. I don't know. She could have ran out of her office. I don't know what she was doing. She claims she was working a 12-hour day. She didn't have lunch. I understand that. And she has to keep the wheels of Troy moving. That's the mayor's job, is to get involved, be a figurehead, make sure that everything keeps moving. It's not to belittle her meetings that she was having that day because they have to keep continuing for the city to keep moving. But they marched right next to your office, and you take pictures of other things out your office window. You missed the 300 people outside. Were you listening to an audiobook? I thought you were working. I don't know. I don't know if she might have been in a council meeting. It was around 7 o'clock. But anything to walk out there for a couple seconds, even if it's to say we support what you're doing. Thank you for relatively keeping this to the public square at the time. Our officers are out here to make sure that you get escorted where you're going. Just make some comments. Get back inside, whatever you have to do. But anyway, she has started to atone for that little bit of a blunder. And I was able to actually speak with her there. We'd like to get her on the show, and I invited her up. It was a cordial conversation. And I told her, I said, you have a different perspective on this. You're welcome to come up. But these young leaders here that you'll see pictured, go up to the top picture of that kid behind I believe that's an SM-58. You could drop that microphone from a helicopter and it wouldn't break.
I believe this is the...
this is the one on the picnic table there, I'm pretty sure.
The very well-spoken gentleman on the picnic table.
He came loaded for bear, man. He was ready to debate anyone with what he had believed to be his cause, what he stood behind. And he did it in a civil way, and he made sure everyone else did it in a civil way as best as possible when tensions are that high. I think he made a speech. There was another younger lady there that made a speech as well. And I tell you what, I don't know if you got to actually listen back to it, Nathan, or not. But they didn't pull any punches. I should have grabbed the sound bites. I don't know why I didn't, but they called him out. They said, "Where were you, Mayor?" They called out the police chief. Like, why didn't you join in on the dialogue? Ducek showed up. He missed his regular bingo night and actually got out there. And he had a dialogue with them. And even at moments, he admitted there were things he would be willing to look at. His supervisor was there. The Miami County Sheriff's Department, they stepped up. They were willing to have a dialogue. I got comment. I remember I got comment from the police captain about what had happened with that incident over there. Sometimes they can't quite talk about things right off the bat, and he didn't really even have all the facts either of what went down over there at the Circle, which I have my guesses. My guess is they tried to strong arm and get this thing under control, and that just wasn't going to happen. But he can give WHIO comment. He can give myself comment. But their gripe was that he couldn't go over there and have a dialogue. And I don't know who was in his ear, if I don't know if it was a personal choice or someone higher up. Who is higher up than the police chief? Who appoints the police chief? I don't know. Well, I'll let you decide that.
Should be the people.
Should be. And that's why the sheriff's office was there. It's an elected seat, which a lot of these kids here, it was one of the kids standing next to this one, said they voted for Ducek. And this kid also enlightened other kids of our generation that aren't aware of the voting process or election cycle, which is a sad reality of our education system. It's not educating them.
He came prepared with voter registration forms, if I remember.
He pulled those out. It was the mic drop moment.
Oh, yeah. Too bad they didn't have a megaphone.
Yeah, we do need to get a Troy Show megaphone here, just so we can lend it and help these people mediate. But that was their gripe, and I mean they didn't hold any words back, and they did it as respectfully as possible at these events. And then the police chief got up there and spoke. And I want to say this was one of the only clips, don't quote me on this, that WHIO kind of ran, and it was the minute clip of the police chief speaking, and he was kind of apologizing, best he could, navigating the political minefield. I was like, why of all people that spoke did you run this clip, WHIO? You're not going to let these other people speak. What was the other thing that they did? Oh, have you seen now that a lot of when they're talking about these protests that have been unfolding since around the community they've been putting on there, it was peaceful. Like they've been putting that in caps because everyone called them out so hard on it when they tried to spin it. They love when national things like rioting and looting come to the local area because they get to get their clicks in their story. We're here to protect lives, whatever they claim. I'm just out there to give you the full coverage wherever we can. We can't make it to everything. We're just a small operation here. We're just citizens that had an idea one day, and we wanted to do something impactful in the community, and this is what we're doing. And not everyone's going to like it. But I am an agree to disagree person, and I'll sit down with folks, and I will talk to them directly to their face. A lot of them will sit behind their closed doors of government buildings and that Troy Show. I could see it happen. I could. I really could. I can hear it now. From all the years I've been in media, I could just see some people probably aren't thrilled with what we're doing, but everyone has a voice now. Things aren't behind closed doors anymore. People are tired of this kind of thing. But those kids showed up and they did a great job speaking. It was great to get to it. I wish I could have had more of a heads up on it. And then there was a prayer vigil in Tip City later that night, I believe 6 p.m., and I kept seeing it, but I couldn't get it. I had our call screener looking through Facebook groups best that we could to find an address. They wouldn't release an address. I don't think they ever updated an address. If they did, it was too late anyway. And then an article comes out. What is this, Troy Daily News or Tippecanoe Gazette?
Pickwood Daily Call.
Pickwood Daily Call. It's bingo. Pick whatever one you want.
Very strange, yeah.
So more than 160 concerned residents gathered at Kyle Park in Tip City on Thursday, June 4th, attending a prayer vigil in honor of George Floyd, who died at the hands of police. Or like the knees of police. The prayer vigil opened with live music by local guitarist Ellie Everhart. Eli. That is missing an L. I don't like reading off screens. That's why I miss my paper, but you know how much ink that it pulls. And featured presentations by 10 different speakers, including Miranda. Take it away, Nathan.
Music. Maybe music. I don't know. It could be.
That'd be interesting. Nathan is not only our video switcher, but our
pronunciation
homeschool corrector.
Homeschool corrector.
The Reverend Bonita Ritchie. think that's about as best take I can get on
That
that.
looks correct. I do think you skipped a line.
Rachel
There's
Billups.
a few reverends in there.
Yeah, a
You
couple
gotta get 'em
reverends
all.
showed up. Victor Thomas, Jordan McKenzie, Reverend Carl Penn, Reverend Barbara Cooper, and Ellis Cooper, I believe. Elsie Cooper.
Wait, is there an? It's too small.
I don't like to get
Sorry.
into names too much.
Sorry, person.
Well, people get offended by it, and it's like I don't mean any offense by it. It's just you have to be self-aware that sometimes your name can be taken two different ways, and it's like cursive handwriting. It's why I don't do it, because everyone's got a style, and I don't have time to read everyone's style. And Tip City Mayor Joe Gibson. But they showed up for a prayer vigil here. And what I was told, like it was maybe going to be an indoor thing. I couldn't get a good beat on what this thing was, so I ended up not going. Because if it was just people praying in a building or whatever, I'm not going to go prop a camera up to capture people praying. That is the time for them. But it turned out to be more of an outdoor event. Police officers were there. Signs were there. A lot of prominent speakers were there. The mayor was there, and there was no media heads up on this. This kind of thing has got to change because I know you people have been doing this for decades, and you're far more connected in media. But we don't want certain people there, so we'll just tell our media connections, don't run this. I can't say without a shadow of a doubt that that is exactly what happened, but it makes me start to think. It makes me wonder. And it frustrates me at a core. Now, here's one that says protesters seek change, and this was the one that we pulled up earlier about Jay Roman's comment. The one thing I did want to point out real quick before we move on, which is I still don't see a correction about it. I didn't see an update. Jay Roman has let us know. Jay Roman shared a video of the full speech and let us know that that's not exactly what he said. I don't see an apology article that's come down the pipeline today. I don't have time to check everything throughout the day, so sometimes I see it the day after the show. I haven't seen any of that yet. If it does happen, I guarantee you Jay will be the first one to let me know at some point because Jay's a fair and honest guy himself. And you know what? I think Jay had one of the, I hope it was not the case, underrated speeches of that demonstration. Now, everyone there speaking had an important voice. Don't get me wrong with what I'm trying to say here. But he got up there and called out the actual problem that we're having. People are caught up on their right. They're caught up on their left. They're caught up with their national political figures that they want to get up and moan about all day. Which I do that myself. We're not perfect. We're humans. But where are people at the local level? Vote. Show up. If you go to watch Piqua, I mean, you'd be surprised to see what's unfolding. If you go to Let's Change Piqua, you'd be surprised to see what's unfolding. I don't think we have any groups like that here in Troy, but you'd be surprised that maybe it's not exactly what's painted on the outside. And sometimes no fault of the citizens because sometimes they don't want them showing up. Well, we know how things work in government, and we know what's best, and I ran to get my agenda pushed, not yours, is sometimes the attitude that's perceived by some people. So an update or a correction would be nice, and we'll wait for it. We will give them the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully they atone. And I tell you what, Nathan, I guarantee you now Miami Valley today is just waiting for that moment they get to throw it back at us. And I will completely own it when that happens, because I'm not perfect. So this one from the Troy Daily News by Melanie Yinkst. County Fair plans to move forward. With any major events still on the calendar this summer, plans will be subject to change, but the Miami County Agricultural Society Fair Board will continue to plan to host its annual county fair this August 14th through the 20th. According to the press release, the board has received and reviewed the recommended guidelines from the state for conducting a county fair in 2020 and have taken no action as to canceling anything at the Miami County Fair. At this time, the 2020 Miami County Fair, with the support of both the senior and junior boards, is continuing as planned. Society President Nick Schellenberger said,
Hey, you got that one.
I did. I think I mean, that one, you can say it how it shows. Now watch, there's some kind of weird pronunciation. said the board is optimistic that state-mandated restrictions on crowds and other pandemic measures will be eased by August, and a full fair will be able to be held. Why would they be eased by August? I thought we're going to be doing this again in August. I thought August was the apocalypse we had to wait for.
Oh, the second wave?
The second wave.
That second wave, it'll get you.
Well, we remember the Spanish flu, and they were all ran out in the streets, and the second wave just... Well, they didn't have a second wave of running water back then either.
They didn't have a second wave of soap and soup.
It was a luxury to have AC or electricity back then. Don't tell me 1918 is anything like 2020. I've heard that too much. And look at all the people who are testing positive or had the antibody, and it never even affected them once. Well, 20,000 new cases in one day. They're doing more testing. Did it say 20,000 deaths in one day? No. But they want you to read that headline and that big number because sometimes the human brain can't comprehend numbers like that. Although 20,000, what is that, third of changing the colors for a city? I can kind of comprehend that, which is fine. They look fine. But I thought we were supposed to be scared come August. You can't go back to your festivals. We had to cancel all the summer concerts, etc., even though we've had a week of 90-degree days. But the Miami County Fair is trying to press forward, unlike all the other fairs that are dropping like flies. The Sydney Daily News reported that since 1860, for the first time, the Shelby County Fair will not go forward as planned. And they couldn't even come up with any other solution. And the same people that told us to stay inside are the same ones that now are saying go out and protest and voice your opinion. We're having our 1918 moment now, where everyone's been locked in their homes and they're rushing to the streets for a cause. In 1918, it was due to the war, wasn't it? They all went out in the streets.
Yeah, correct. It wasn't V-Day. That was in World War II. It was the end of World War I when we beat the Germans.
Yeah, because that movie is now, 1917.
Yeah, correct.
So that would have been right around the time. And that's how Zoomers equate history. You remember that movie? That's how I remember what happened. But our video switcher, also our local historian here, spends countless hours of research so that you have the best information available to you on historical events. So there's your second wave here. Let's watch it unfold. We won't even have to wait for August now to find out what the second wave will be. And a lot of these events have been canceled because a lot of the people supposed to show up to these have canceled for their public PR moves. I went into Waffle House, or I tried to the other day. I tried to go to Waffle House here in Troy. I just wanted breakfast. I wanted to go sit down again inside of a building and get breakfast. So I went over to Waffle House, and they still have a sign up that we're not serving, or no, I don't even think they're catering or doing anything. And Waffle House is the one that stays open. The joke is that they stay open during hurricanes.
Actually, I believe FEMA has a scale known as the Waffle House scale. And if the Waffle House is fully open, you're fine. There's no disaster. If they are on a low, what's considered their low stock menu, then there's probably a hurricane going on. And if you can't get a call back from the Waffle House is just gone.
It's just wiped
gone.
off the map.
Yeah,
it's been struck by a missile at that point.
Yeah, that's probably nuclear holocaust, zombie apocalypse type stuff. If the Waffle House is gone.
Well, in this case, apparently coronavirus was the one that did it, because I pull into the parking lot, ready for my Waffle House breakfast. I'm ready to go in there and get into a big thing of hash browns smothered with some gravy and the bacon strips, the waffle, the All-Star, man. I was going to go with the full package, the All-Star, the coffee. I might have even thrown in orange juice. Why the hell not? It's a celebration of being able to finally get back out of the house, interact normally in a healthy manner that we should have been doing, and were doing for 2 months while this thing existed anyway, but neither here nor there. And they were closed. The sign was still there. And I said, don't act now, Waffle House, that you care about public health. Your Waffle House. Don't tell me now, after all these years of throwing margarine and smothering it with spit and whatever else.
And
in
just
fact,
sticking to the floor when you walk in.
It was that same Waffle House. Years ago, when I got off work, I went there at that Waffle House. And I sat down at the counter. And I got my usual 10 p.m. special, or whenever I got there, 11 o'clock. And I said, I'd like hash browns and gravy on them. And he said, hey, I make, the chef there said, I make my own special gravy. It's not Waffle House gravy. And at this point, the red flag should have been up. I should have been out the door at that point. And he said, would you like to try it? And I said, yes. By God, it was the best tasting gravy I've ever had at Waffle House, and I'm still here to talk about it.
Waffle House corporate needs to hire that guy.
Well, I don't know if he got promoted. I'll just put it that way. I don't know. I never saw him again. It was not disgusting. It was excellent. It was great. So don't tell me now, Waffle House, that you care. So I called Bob Evans immediately and asked if their dine-in was open, and they were. In fact, it was the day after we covered the protest down here in Troy, and I just needed a big breakfast.
Now, does Bob Evans have any, are half the tables closed? Do they have shower curtains up and stuff? Like some establishments are doing? No,
they're down to about 50% capacity or something like that. So about every other table.
Okay, sure.
They had me at a 4-seat table. Little self.
Just by yourself?
No bar stools up at the bar, which doesn't make sense. It's just one person, but I guess they don't want me, as I'm prone to do, spitting on the people as they walk by. I'm just a gross individual, man. I sneeze on everybody I pass. It's just an epidemic in America, apparently. But no, they had me on a four-person table there, taking up 3 spaces I didn't need. But I felt like royalty, I'll tell you that much. Peaceful. It was quiet in there. It might be a good way to just continue dining. If they can figure out a way to make profit off of that amount of tables, just keep doing that, honestly. Keeps me away from everyone. Not that I don't like people. I grew up antisocial. I still am to a point. I struggle with it. It's an ongoing adventure. So our local community is rebounding from this. I've seen nothing. They just had the Energized Troy the other day. 3 days of discounts across stores participating. Everyone's adapting. There's shower curtains everywhere. It's fine. It's all fine. We can do a county fair. A county fair is just littered with animals, with God knows what on them. And I know these farmers take great care of their animals. Sometimes even better so than treatment you'd get at a hospital. I mean, these things are very well taken care of, and that's a good thing. I love animals. So it's a county fair. You're walking around in mud and straw, and it smells, and it's animals everywhere. And then you're eating greasy food that'll kill you quicker than a virus will. What is it? It's hard, right?
Are you trying to say that fried butter isn't healthy?
I don't know, actually, because they had us switch back to I can't believe it's not butter, and then they told us that's not healthy for us, and they had us go back to butter. Cramming a couple buckets down, probably. But it's a fair. Go get the waffle. Go have fun. It's overpriced anyway. You might as well enjoy it. It's a fair. We've been doing that for decades. Suddenly, should we reconsider how we handle local fairs? And so many people profit off of these. So many different organizations are bettered for the year because of the fair. It says here that the board has received and reviewed the recommended guidelines from the state for conducting a county fair in 2020 and have taken no action as to canceling anything at the Miami County Fair. At this time, the 2020 Miami County Fair will support both the senior and junior boards. It's continuing to do so as planned. Schellenberger said no changes or extra restrictions for camping will be necessary. He also said tickets for its concert featuring Jeremy Camp have been postponed until the board knows more regarding outdoor concerts and if it can still be held. I would say that an outdoor concert is probably the most riskiest. You'd probably cram them inside of a building where they're all breathing the same air, and maybe that'll work. But it looks like good news for the Miami County Fair. I believe Dark County's was axed. I don't know. I know Sydney's or Shelby County's fair is out.
I actually don't think Dark County Fair has been axed.
I want to say Jenna Powell's fighting for them still.
That one's in late August, and I actually went to their website the other day. There wasn't any mention of a cancellation on their
Aren't they all in August? Around that time, those couple months?
Yeah, most of them. But really, you would expect that all this would have died down by August. Or at least, I mean, heck,
well, they had everyone.
I thought everything would have died down by May, but I was wrong.
They had everyone panicking for fall, setting them up for this.
Yeah.
Well, it has died down. I mean, look at these people. They're going out into the streets, willing to put aside the countless that they will kill to do so for their cause that they stand behind. And I don't blame them one bit. It's time we get back to a more natural, healthy way of living life. And yes, these things will be prevalent. And yes, make sure you do your best to, at the end of the day, ensure those around you are sanitary, that you are protecting them the best that you can, and being a decent human being. So the commission, they support the plans that proceed with the junior fair. Let's see here. Officials voice disagreement over distancing measure. Now, the fair seems to have it all down pat and good to go. But as we mentioned earlier, these city buildings and government buildings are still feuding over what to do. So it says here, the officials voiced disagreement over distancing measures by Samantha Wildo at the Troy Daily News. On Thursday, Miami County Municipal Court Judge Sam Huffman, Sheriff Dave Duchek, and Prosecutor Anthony Kendall disputed who was in charge of screening people coming to the Miami County Courthouse, as well as potentially limiting visitors to the third and second floors in order to continue social distancing standards. I don't know how they got all those metal detectors in the courthouse and the safety building, but body cameras just, I don't know, can't do it. Could cost $100,000. Well, hey, here's $3.1 million for the courthouse. Here you go. It's right next to the safety building. Now, I don't know the tape. Again, I'm viewing this as a citizen. I'm viewing this from the perspective, and this, I would hope that those in charge listen and understand how we perceive them, and don't take it as a dig, but take it as I've never thought about their perspective on this, because obviously when you're in a government role, you're going to catch heat from both sides. You can't please everyone. That is something I don't admire about the job or elected official, is trying to please everyone that you can. It's just impossible at times. But it's not an excuse that you can't get the money. It's just that you didn't feel like fighting hard enough for that money, or others in your way fought harder for their money, for their state funding, for their national funding. I tell you what, if we could get rid of some of the state taxes and federal funding and reinvest it, and I think people would be more open to the idea of local taxes affecting them, that they can see. It's kind of the idea of capitalism as a consumer. When you spend money, you want it to be worth the product that you're buying. So it would only make sense to me to increase local taxes if we have to have taxes in some limited form. As much as I'd love to say they're theft, they are, at the end of the day, a vital part of a limited government and a limited police force and a limited everything to make sure that everyone is safe and that things get done in the community. Trash, fire, EMS, police. Different departments of government that keep the city beautiful, that keep it going and turning. But I think if we could maybe get rid of the idea that these people should be scared to make a decision, scared to talk, scared to lead their local community, with concerns of upsetting the people at the state level or the national level because they won't get their funding. That's where a lot of things get tied up. That's why a lot of the local people that we elect, that we want to speak for us, to represent us, can't do anything because there's someone higher up with their political interests who they don't want to give them the funding because of something they said about them. I know exactly how that is here. When you talk, suddenly people don't seem to like you as much anymore. They want you to be complicit. Get on board with my ideas. So that is the happenings over there. They're debating about who is in charge of screening people. It says here the discussion was held during the Board of Miami County Commissioners meeting, during which the commissioners received clarification that the court is responsible for maintaining the second and third floors of the courthouse. There was a disagreement over whether deputies from the Miami County Sheriff's Office should continue screening people entering the courthouse by asking what their business is at the courthouse, potentially telling some visitors they cannot go up to the second or third floors, or if this was the court's responsibility to control the flow of people to the third floor specifically. I think what is relevant is doing the right thing, Huffman said. We have a deputy to protect these people. Wow, that was a big brain statement. I think it's relevant, doing the right thing. Oh, what's the right thing? What are you talking about? See, people are tired of fluff comments like that because people, oh yeah, the right thing. Yeah, I love the right thing. Well, what is the right thing?
Oh, I can think of a few people in history that thought they were doing the right thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to name any names.
I was expecting you to cough under your breath there. We have a duty to protect these people. Well, of course you do. But then the argument is not that we all know you have a duty to protect these people, and we all know you have a duty to do the right thing. So how can you say so much and waste so much time with words that mean absolutely nothing to the general public? Huffman spoke about wanting to limit the number of people who can go with up to the third floor to do not have business with the court system. I used to proofread these so that way we wouldn't have those, but now it's just like, you know what, at this point, if they're not going to stop, we might as well just show everyone what it's like having to get through one of these. He used the example of how approximately 23 people out of 70 court summons appeared to be arraigned Tuesday morning in municipal court, but those 23 people brought 20 people with them. In order to keep people distanced apart, the third floor has a capacity for approximately 60 to 70, including filtering people into the large courtroom to wait until they are called for court. Now, Ducek is going to chime in on this. People have constitutional rights to come into the building, Ducek said. He later said he was told the order from the judges was an unlawful order, and he was advised not to follow it. Yeah, just take a playbook out of the governor's role, and you'll be fine. Judges don't matter. Court of law doesn't matter. Just get someone else to do the order. In response to people having a constitutional right to go into the courthouse, Huffman said, apparently we trampled on that for 3 months. I don't know if he's being sarcastic or if he's waking up to the fact. I would say he's being sarcastic. Something I would say, but not quite like what he's talking about. The style. Kendall said the commissioners were riding on the coattails of the governor when they closed the courthouse and other county buildings, but not the state. But now the state wants it opened up. That is important, what Kendall said there. Because what Kendall is saying here is they were riding on the coattails of the governor. Why did they send that letter so late? Because they were riding on the coattails. They were enjoying it. They're here to save everybody. And then at the end, people started getting grumpy because it's like, we've done this for long enough. We've done everything humanly possible to try and stop this virus. We've been doing everything asked of us. Can we please get back to some form of a healthy, normal, natural life? And then, well, yes, we'll immediately send this letter off to the governor and the commissioners. See, you can get stuff done at your local level. Yeah, but we're not actually going to send it. We're just going to release it because he's doing what we wanted him to now in the first place anyway. So it's all, when you look deeper, and they don't like it. They don't like it. They don't like that people are saying this. They don't like it. But Kendall is on the money with that one. But now this even the state wants it opened up at this point, and they're still debating this. Kendall said the commissioners were, riding on the coattails. And then Huffman later accused Ducek of not wanting to continue limiting people who come into the courthouse, to which Ducek said, I want to do what we're legally allowed to do. He's an elected sheriff. He can't be more correct about that, even when I disagree with him or make fun. Ducek is 100% right here. As a sheriff, that should be your number one priority. What is legally allowed? But I'm crazy. Well, and what a cheap. Huffman later accused Ducek of not wanting to continue. You want more people to die? Oh, don't throw that out there. Actually argue something on facts. Don't just say mystical people will die. You don't know that. You have nothing behind that. And then the numbers don't even line up with that. Well, if this is the case, if we never want anyone to die, we can do this all day. It leads to dumb arguments like, you want people to die? Well, then maybe we should just lock ourselves in the house all day. It's a back and forth that never ends, and nothing substantive ever comes of it. It's like common sense is flown out the window a long time ago. The group took a recess from the commissioners' meeting, speaking privately before returning to the meeting with a resolution to reword the original order in a way that puts the responsibility of the judges.
On the judges.
Oh, on the judges. I'm sorry, my mic cord got in the way on that one. But utilizes the sheriff's office to continue screening people at the checkpoint at the entrance of the courthouse. Huffman apologized for his tone during the earlier meeting after they had a private meeting. Yeah, say that again. Why don't you go out there and say that to Ducek again? A couple deputies showed up. No, I kid. Apologized for his tone, and the administrators from the municipal court did not respond to a request for a copy of the orders as of press time on Thursday. Press time, dude. Press time's hilarious. You know, they got to run the local news by a certain time every night. They've got to do this every. It's like Facebook exists. Come on. Print is just. I know these people get off their shift at a certain amount of time and they write for the day or whatever, but it doesn't take much. Just plop something out on social media. So that's pretty much the turmoil going on over there. They're still debating how they're going to socially distance an old historic building that people have been walking in and out of, exposing diseases. But here's something interesting, right? So this all goes down, and then an article comes out a couple days later from Miami Valley Today. Corrections officers have tested positive for the spooky 19. Miami County Sheriff Dave Duchek on Monday reported several corrections officers have tested positive for COVID-19 after they recently attended a birthday party. Last week, 2 Miami County corrections officers began not feeling well within 24 hours of each other. Look at that. He's defeating his own argument. The corrections officers who work the same shift were placed on sick leave, according to a press release from the Miami County Sheriff's Office. Staff investigated where the 2 had been the past several days and learned that both officers, along with 5 of their colleagues from their shift, attended a birthday party several days prior. The other 5 officers were immediately placed on sick leave and were all told to get tested for COVID-19. Positive COVID-19 test results came back on the first 2 officers, and since then, 5 more officers have tested positive. We have been in contact with the Miami County Health Department throughout, Duchek said in the press release on Monday. While the jail population was eventually going to be tested by public health as best practice, they moved up the date of testing to today. All corrections staff and inmates who voluntarily wished to be tested were done so by public health staff today. The results of the testing will likely be known within 48 hours. I think it said they were displaying some symptoms up there, if I'm not mistaken. They attended a birthday party. They weren't feeling well within 24 hours of each other. They work the same shift. They were placed on sick leave. And then 5 others tested positive. I don't know if they've shown symptoms or not. But it doesn't defeat anything that I've said from the past thing we just talked about with them debating on opening up the courthouse, because even if they are screening these people, if they're taking their temperatures, it's just a in-house speed radar for people. They're well trained with those. If they're doing that, I mean, there's no way to really know if someone's positive or not without sticking that swab up there, right? They could be asymptomatic. So don't let anyone in the building.
It's either the swab or a blood test.
So don't let anyone in the building. If you're not blood testing them upon entrance, then you're not saving lives. And they did here what anyone's been doing for years, sending people home that are sick with the flu. I can't remember a job that I've worked where someone's shown up with the flu, and I know it does happen. I'm generalizing here, so hold with me. I've not ever remembered that, where I'm like, go home. I've been supervisors at jobs before. I don't want you here. I'll do the work of 2 people for the night if it means that I don't have to be sick or other people get sick. And maybe that's just a culture problem that we're having, then maybe people aren't doing that anymore, and it just took a stark kick in the pants, a reminder. I don't know. It looks like DeWine's black SUVs with the Ohio Safe team have reached the local area, from what I can tell. As Governor Mike DeWine, coming from the Sydney Daily News, by Cheryl
Roadcap.
But the A is before the O.
Well,
Rudcap.
I don't know what to tell you.
I don't either on that one. As Governor Mike DeWine warned at his May 18th press conference, law enforcement officers who make up the Ohio Department of Public Safety's investigative unit have been performing compliance checks at local bars and restaurants. On May 21st, 2 Shelby County businesses, Keyhole Pizza and Scuddy's Newport Tavern, both in Fort Laramie, were checked for compliance by the OIU, a liquor enforcement agency. Really? Bars and restaurants were allowed to reopen for outdoor services on May 15th after being closed mid-March due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Employees must wear face protection. Guests are required to be seated. Tables must be separated 6 feet apart and may not include more than 10 people. Would it please the Crown if I could take a swig of Crown Royal standing? Businesses not following the order signed by Ohio Department of Health Director Amy Acton may be cited and could result in their liquor license being revoked. Well, it's either that or what's the difference between being shut down and a revoked license? I mean, a lot of the people have been able to get bounced back, but some of them couldn't. I saw one that said, well, I'll use a polite word, screw you, Mike DeWine. My business is closed, or whatever bar I think he had. Well, you can't post that sign. You didn't want your liquor license being taken. What's worse? I mean, they put them in a situation where it's either we revoke your liquor license or we force you to roll the dice to see if your business can survive being shut down that long. Which one do you pick as a business owner? Now, neither Fort Laramie business was cited, as both were following regulations in the order that allowed restaurants to begin to reopen. Owner of Keyhole Pizza, Bob, or Keyhole Bob, as he is known, said he was unaware that task force officers came to his business. I'm trying to do the best I can and keep tables apart and follow the orders. I'm trying to do good and help keep the numbers of people infected with coronavirus down. And that's what we've all been trying to do. We've all been trying to rationalize this in our head and save our fellow man as we do as Americans. But sometimes it comes to a point where it's like you can't keep forcing more and more responsibility on businesses. Grab a Clorox wipe and do it yourself.
Too bad you can't find any of those.
Yeah, because everyone went out and panicked. That's the only reason the supply chain got messed up, was because no one was letting people know. They had no idea. Well, we don't have a playbook for here. We just keep extending the date. Why didn't they do it for 2 years? Because they knew that no one could survive that and life had to go on. At their core, they had to do it, but they needed to score some political points in the process, and the left needed to get their political points, and the right needed to get their political points. And the people in the middle who just want to own their bar and live and have been treating and caring about their customers for years, decades, are suddenly told that they're not capable of that. So that's what's going on up in Fort Laramie. They are driving around the local area. They are real. I've seen pictures of them. It's not an empty threat. But you do have to concern yourself far more with someone popping up to your business, snitching on you, because there's been incentive to do so, or to the point where we're calling. Yeah, speaking of, I was at the Shell today. Some lady going on about the gas pumps or whatever, and I just wanted to buy a drink. It was a Kickstart. This poor kid behind the counter, we're trying to fix it. We know the problem's there. And she was like, well, I knew that yesterday. Actually, it's funny you say that because it wasn't. I just want to drink. I want to get in and out of there. The busybodies of the world are the problem at times. Well, I'm going to go get my receipt. I don't think she ever came back with it.
Yeah.
Shocker. Imagine my shock. Yeah, well, I just told the guy, good luck. I don't know, man. It's just... So let's see. Sydney's got some good news coming from the Sydney Daily News. Debt refinancing to save the city $1.7 million over 1 year. 20 years, I'm sorry. 20 years. Not 1 year, 20 years. And now that could be good. Government saving money at any time, I will accept. What does that equal out? About $50,000 a year?
1.7
No, it'd be more. It'd be about 100,000. 80,000 or so a year. Just off of really rough preliminary Troy Show math here. Yeah, while we're looking that up, if you do have any comments, if I've said stuff, $85,000 a year?
Yep.
Okay. That's something. It's good for a local city to save money anywhere. They've restructured it. But if you do have any opinions, or I've said something that's just ruffled your feathers too much, 937-696-7572. I'll gladly talk about it with you, okay? I like perspective. We try to have civil dialogue here. So the city of Sydney is estimated to save approximately $1.7 million over the next 20 years after refinancing city debt. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, Sydney City Council passed legislation authorizing the refinance of outstanding bonds totaling $9.4 million. A City of Sydney press release said recently that process was completed, and it was estimated that the city will save approximately $1.7 billion over the next 20 years. 900,000 of the savings will apply to the sewer fund, and the remaining 650,000 cash saved will be in the water fund. The remaining 150,000 will impact various funds. Over the 20-year period, average annual bond savings of $70,000 represents 0.5% of total water and sewer revenue. Nevertheless, the savings will aid with the replacement of aging utility infrastructure. It sounds like it's going to a good place. Infrastructure is kind of a rough point in the country right now. Now this is the one that everyone's frustrated about. And I've got one thing. I have one thing that will disprove what people have been saying about this. And it's kind of a very simple take, and not a lot behind it. Kind of gets the brain turning. But the Piqua City Commission, according to the Troy Daily News by Samantha Wildo again, the Piqua City Commission is to hold a work session on medical marijuana dispensaries. Ohio, you can get a medical card. You can be prescribed, instead of an opioid or something, you can be prescribed a medical marijuana card. And usually when you're prescribed a medical marijuana card, you have some sort of physical ailment. Maybe you're not as able to go as far as you once did. So why should we make these people drive from their city if they've been prescribed all the way down to Dayton, which is one of the first places I think locally that you can get to a dispensary, because Troy, Sidney, and Piqua have all banned them because they're scared, again, restricted by funding from the federal and state level. That was one of the excuses that I've heard. But don't worry, we'll throw a CBD store in Troy, which shows me that they are more open to the idea, and clearly Piqua is. And I think there's more to this, but I will let that unfold. But the Piqua City Commission is going to hold a work session on medical marijuana dispensaries, and people are already starting to say, get that out of Piqua. Nathan, what is the busiest store in downtown Piqua?
I was about to say, it's strange to me that
it's a head shop.
that they're so opposed to this, but Crazy Martin's has to be one of the most popular stores in Piqua.
And I don't have any factual evidence behind that. I'm saying it's a simple take. It's just the first thing that comes to my head. Everyone knows about Crazies. And I don't know about you, but anyone I've ever talked to from Piqua is very open to the idea.
And what bothers me, they're real eager to take the tax money of sale of illegal, and obviously the hardware they're selling is not illegal, but it's obviously being used for illegal purposes. They won't tell you that in store, but
can I get your bubbler, man?
They're eager to take that sales tax money, but for some reason they're afraid of the medical, the dispensaries.
Because it has absolutely nothing to do with anyone's health. It has nothing to do with whether the product is legal or not. Because not always what is legal is what's right, and what's illegal is what's right. You know, it's not always as black and white as that. I'm telling you, more is going to come from this. I have a feeling. Because you don't just turn and put your tail between your legs on an issue like this, and especially when you just denied it a while back. And the argument from some people in the community is, well, our last group, because it's like a revolving door up there in Pinion of public officials, or a Piqua of public officials, the last group said no, and we should ask ourselves, why did they say no about medical marijuana? Well, maybe because they were the last group for a reason. The Piqua City Commission and Planning Commission of Piqua will be conducting a work session. They're all just going to get a giant 4-foot bong and see if this stuff really works. To learn about and
Who's
discuss.
got arthritis?
My neck's starting to hurt from craning over at the city council meetings all the time and falling asleep. To discuss the topic of medical marijuana dispensaries, this meeting will be conducted on Wednesday, June 17th at 6 p.m. using the video conferencing application Zoom. They'll be Zooming, all right. This can be downloaded from your app store or be accessed through your browser at zoom.us. I can just see them right now. Where's the live button? They'll probably just be messing with the green screen effects the entire time. Board members, staff members, and agenda item applicants will attend the meeting using Zoom and will have live audio and video feeds. All others wishing to attend may do so via phone or computer in listen-only mode. Those who wish to attend must submit a request for meeting access information via email by noon on the date of the meeting. Requests for meeting access may be submitted to Bethany Harp at bharp@piqua.oh.org. Residents may also submit public comment on an item until noon on the day of the meeting by emailing Bethany Harp at bharp@piqua.oh.org. Public comments submitted by the date time noted will be presented to the commissioners at the public hearing proceedings. The full agenda for this work session is available on the city's website at Piqua. I think they'll probably start off with something light, if I had to guess. It'll probably be just a little glass water pipe. Well, then they'll probably go into water. They might get something bigger. But no, they are going to be hearing the idea now. They are going to be looking at it and seeing exactly what's going on. And I would say that the people of Piqua are behind this from the ones I've talked to. There's always those people that sit in their homes and they're not really involved with the community, and they just hear something in the community. Nah, just get it out. Well, that's fine. Don't shop at these dispensaries. And by the way, they're actually very clean, medically regulated places, a.k.a. medical marijuana dispensaries. And, so there you have it. If you don't want to go to the dispensary, don't go. Well, we don't want the unsavory hippies wandering Piqua's streets. You have a head shop down there. And I'm not saying, I say that in sarcasm because those people are normal people like everyone else. They have a different culture about them. They have a different vibe. They keep to themselves. They do their thing. They enjoy what makes them happy, and you can do so sitting in your home. That's fine. I'm not against anyone here. I'm just saying it's silly to not entertain the idea because you don't want to go there. There's plenty. I don't ever have any plans of going to this hotel they're building here in Troy. I don't ever have any plans of using it. So should I come out and say, because obviously a hotel is for other people. It's for a different people. It's people traveling. They have a different need. But I'm not going to stand here and sit in the way of progression on something so silly as this.
In the end, in my opinion, I think anything that'll give the city tax revenue is a good thing.
Well, that's probably, But look at the people who have passed this. Look at the states that have passed this. Look at the people who have taken a reasonable approach to this like they do alcohol. You can smoke your lungs till you die. You can inhale as many cigarettes as you want. You can drink.
You can go to Walmart, get a bottle of cheap whiskey, and kill yourself if you wanted.
Easily. And there are people who struggle with it. It's a problem. I'm not going to lie. People have addictions, and there's help for them out there. But they don't seem to care when that's as long as they've got some state. It's because they're still frustrated about the bond payments they're getting from the cigarette companies because they couldn't get the billions they wanted in a lump sum, so they have been paying back payments or something like that to government for a long time. And so if anything happens to their precious tobacco industry, they don't get their money that they wanted decades ago. Look a little bit deeper than is weed good or bad. There's a lot of things that I think are bad and other people think are good, okay? I'm not here to tell people what they can and cannot enjoy, and I don't think that's the role of government when it's quite clear as long as there's enough money involved. Bud Light, the official sponsor of the NFL, or whatever the case is.
Not a sponsor of the Troy Show.
Not yet. We have a contact at Post Malone's, right? We know someone, right?
We'll get around to it.
We'll get our people on it. We'll get our people.
We got to do a little. What's the word?
Couple phone calls, and we'll get a Bud Light sponsorship in no time. No, but seriously, when money starts to get into things, just follow it. It's not that hard. We'll see what the old city of Piqua, our friends to the north, come up with on that one in the coming weeks. Now, a judge orders a forensic evaluation. We talked about this one. This is coming from the Sydney Daily News. This was the unfortunate story. And this is coming from our crime segment, as we are now in our crime segment. Where's the obligatory soundbite? Out of this week in Sydney, an unfortunate follow-up to an unfortunate story. The teenager accused of stabbing and killing another teenager waived his right to a probable cause hearing Friday in Shelby County Juvenile Court. The 15-year-old, who has been charged with murder, stood beside his attorney of Cincinnati as Judge Jeffrey J.
Good call skipping that one.
I'm learning. If I can catch the name,
that's a Polish name. I'm not even going to try.
If I can say it without having to say it, then I'll do that instead. I'd rather do that than butcher someone's name.
Sure.
But asked him if he understood what it means to waive his right to the hearing. The teenager answered, yes, he understood. The court finds probable cause exists that the teen committed the alleged crime. Then they ordered the teen have a forensic evaluation completed by a forensic psychiatry center of Western Ohio. The teen will be transported from the West Central Juvenile Detention Facility for the evaluation. They said it's up to the officials at the Forensic Psychiatry Center of Western Ohio to determine how many days will be needed for the evaluation. The judge also accepted the signed waiver for the probable cause hearing. During the teen's first appearance in juvenile court on May 15th, the Shelby County Prosecutor's Office asked that the case be transferred to Shelby County Common Pleas Court. The probable cause hearing was one of the steps of the process before they made their final decision. Was that a guy sneezing?
Maybe.
What was that?
It's a loud sneeze hearing it all the way up here.
Just heard someone drive by. It sounded like they sneezed out their
He might
window.
have just been saying wahoo.
Oh, well, I guess that is the universal sneeze
Might
sound.
just be having a good time out there.
You
I
heard
don't
that,
know.
right? I'm not going crazy.
I certainly heard that.
Okay.
I don't know if it came through, but
That was wild. No, that's a nice switch up from the gunshots of exhausts that we've been getting through here recently. Now, in order for the juvenile to be transferred to adult court, they said certain standards must be met. They include be 14 years of age or older, which he is. There's probable cause the juvenile committed the offense, which it seems like there is. The juvenile is not amendable to juvenile court rehabilitation and shows there's a safety concern to the community. If the case is transferred to adult court, the juvenile could face 15 years to life in prison, 5 years of probation once he gets out of prison, and $20,000 in fines and court cost. Isn't it weird that what he did wasn't legal and he did it anyway? All that threat, huh? They still do it.
yeah.
Says something. Now a Piqua man is sentenced to over 8 years in prison for sex offenses. There's been a lot of these dudes lately in the news, which is a good thing that we're seeing the sentencing side in the news cycle, which means that they are getting what is owed to them. A Piqua man was sentenced to serve over 8 years in prison in Miami County Common Pleas Court on Monday after he was convicted of sexually assaulting an elderly adult as well as being in possession of child porn.
Wow, that's a wide range to be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, some of these guys, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Well, I guess nothing really surprises me anymore, but Gregory S. Wagner, 68 of Piqua, and it always seems to be older. I just an observation, I don't know why, was sentenced to 17 months in prison for fourth-degree felony gross sexual imposition and 7 years in prison for 6 counts of second-degree felony illegal use of a minor in nudity-oriented material. While the 7 years for each of the counts of pornography will run concurrent with one another, Wagner's prison time for gross sexual imposition will run consecutive to those 7 years for a total of 8 years and 5 months in prison. They provided a letter from Wagner's son on his behalf. He's had some mental health issues, Hem said about Wagner. Wagner was deemed competent to stand trial on March 19th. Wagner entered pleas of no contest to the charges on May 4th. I have good family, Wagner said on Monday. I tried to take care of them. I made some mistakes. He later apologized to the court, the state, and his family. The defendant's already been to prison twice, Watkins said. The defendant's going to do this again when he gets out. Interesting argument, like I just said. Seems to be a repeating pattern. He was probably, I don't know, everyone's seen it at this point. You saw the Winans allegations going around.
Yeah. I mean, there are some people who haven't heard it, so we might want to.
Yeah, there's
touch on
been,
that,
because it's going to come around anyway. It's a public post that's been circling around out there. And like I said, we don't shy away from things. I don't care about any of that.
Do we have any images or?
No, I don't have any
articles
images or anything like that.
Okay.
But I mean, I didn't want to pull it up that much yet because
Sure.
it's still unfolding. I'm told that there's an investigation in place. I'm not sure how much truth there is to that, but this was tweeted back in October of 2017 from what I could gather by a kid at the time. I want to say he was around, from what I'm being told and seen out there, what's public, that he was around probably 16 at the time.
Yes.
And the owner of Winans, the 20 stores I believe that they own in the area, has been accused of sexual assault allegations. And of course, when you retract the 18-year-old age from that anything further, it turns into a whole other story at that point. They have started to delete that's probably someone paid by them, trying to drown us out with their exhaust. But they've deleted or set to private all of their social medias that everyone can see. Originally, there was a tweet in 2017 that didn't gain any traction of this young kid saying that this has happened to him. There was a report that the school was being contacted by the wife of the owner of Winans, and the school had to tell her to stop calling or we're going to the police with this, because in those fields, when the school gets wind of this, there's certain reports I believe they have to make. Once it is heard, it cannot be unheard. So why it's taken 3 years, but this young gentleman now living in New York, after having worked for them back then, came out with a post, and basically what it said was, if you care about black lives, then why did no one listen to me back in 2017? And now there's also apparently more people that are supposedly going to come forward. There's supposedly now an investigation into this. And I believe this was around the Pickwa store. Now, I want to say here, first of all, I do not participate or care much for cancel culture or boycotts. If you liked Winans coffee yesterday, it is still the same coffee today, because there are many people who didn't know about this, who rely on a paycheck from Winans to support their family. Don't take it out on them if this turns out to be true, which we hope it doesn't, but it's not looking good. Apparently, from what I've heard, they've left the area. They don't live anywhere near here anymore. All the indicators that I've seen, because you have to think of the other side, that someone could just want to tarnish their reputation. And I've seen that unfold too. But from what I've seen, this does not look good for them. But what I'm trying to tell you here is don't boycott, because there are still people who are unaware of all of this that financially benefit from the business they built. Now, in their personal life, it's not good, and I hope they no longer get to financially benefit from this if they are found guilty of this. We'll let the court of law play out, and we'll see what happens. But it caught traction like wildfire. Hundreds of likes, hundreds of comments, people saying they should have listened sooner. Whatever the case is, it does not sound good at the moment, and we are honest with our listeners here, and that's part of the integrity of the show, that we're not going to shy on anything, because I don't do that here. I don't do this backwater deal thing. Well, I'll talk about this if you don't talk about this, or pay you this to do that. No. This is a talk show in its truest form. It's what talk shows used to be. It's what radio used to be, until all of that money got involved. And I don't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. It's like Greg McAfee. I don't know what he was doing. It was a stupid comment. But don't now play the moral righteous high ground, WHIO, and pull his ads. I don't do the cancel culture thing. He paid for those. It's purely a business transaction at that point. I think Dayton Children's pulled out. You saw what he said.
Yep.
Yeah, that was just stupid comment.
Where was that comment?
I heard it was like on his Facebook, or I don't think it was his Twitter, because his Twitter he hasn't used in forever.
Okay.
But it was not a breath of fresh air. And that's what happens when you take your business and you grow it, and it starts off as X thing, and then you say, I've got all this power and money now, I will be a political influence. I will use my business for political influence. It's doomed to fail every time. Business is ruthless, and business is business. Do not try to present yourself as a moral, righteous, high cause, because it will never play out. I do the Troy Show. This is me. This is who I am. I'm open and I'm honest. I try to be as open of a book as possible. I'm not perfect. I don't come off that way. I try to get ahead of things. And so when you set yourself up for that, and when you're willing to take a stand on that hill, that's where it's going to end. So that is unfortunate news coming out of Troy this week. Well, technically Pickwa, because that's where he worked. But we're going to see how that one unfolds. But we wanted to get out here and talk about it, because you're going to find out either way. It's a public post. And that is the age we live in now. But like I said, if you still like their coffee, go buy it. There are people who depend on a paycheck. You're only hurting them, really. These people have enough money, trust me. So coming from the Sydney Daily News, a computer network disruption has hit Honda. Out of the crimes, well, I guess this is kind of the crime section, too. I should have put it in there, but we're into the glance section now. Out of Anna, Ohio, Honda canceled some production Monday, including at its Anna engine plant because of disruption in its computer network. On Sunday, June 7th, Honda experienced a disruption in its computer network that has caused a loss of connectivity, thus impacting our business operations. Our information technology team is working quickly to assess the situation, a statement from Honda of America MFG Incorporated states. Honda didn't provide any more details about the disruption. The Telegraph and Sky News, British media organizations, reported a cyber attack was suspected, and Honda facilities worldwide were affected. I don't know what else there is to really say about that other than, yeah, that's kind of the world we live in. Do your best, and if these large companies can get hit by it, I mean, really, don't even bother with that antivirus on your computer, because they'll get you one way or another if they can get Honda. And usually that's what they want to do, is they want either what Honda has, maybe there's a competitor, or if it's a bank they go after, they want a collective. Like, why go after one person in their home, although that would be easier, but there's not a big payoff. So they go after the big bank, and they get all the information at once, and then they sit on it for a while. Sometimes they don't get caught, and then, boom, they get you for identity theft or whatever the case is after a couple years of the heat dying off. Kings Island not too happy that they've built that new roller coaster down there and they haven't been able to roll it out yet. So guess what they're doing? Kings Island, and I wonder who the first people were going to be able to take this mantle, which big corporation would take this mantle. Kings Island has sued the Ohio Department of Health director over coronavirus shutdown, and then the next day they come out and say, oh, no, you can open up. But I still think the lawsuit's going to hold. That's not going to be enough to deter these people, in my opinion, because social distancing, the lines at Kings Island, you couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to sit on them. The Kings Island Amusement Park has filed a lawsuit against Amy Acting, director of the Ohio Department of Health, over state orders restricting the opening of water and amusement parks. The lawsuit, filed Thursday in Warren County Common Pleas Court, also names the Warren County Health District. The litigation is the latest local move in a growing struggle with the state over the orders made in efforts to stem the spread of the novel coronavirus. The lawsuit claims Acting lacks authority to order the restrictions preventing water park and amusement parks like Kings Island from opening. The lawsuit also claims a lack of due process allowing for the appeal of the state orders. The orders also violate the doctrine of separation of powers and delegated unfettered and unbridled vague power to unelected officials, such as the state and county health officials. Do you think they're going to win it?
I hope so. I mean, frankly, I just kind of want to go to Kings Island, but...
Frankly, I think they want you to go to Kings Island and get some of that money.
Yeah.
The new ride. Here's one from the Bugle Caller. Into the satire. This is satire. Satire warning. Sound the alarms. Everything I'm about to say. Well, actually, this one's kind of true. But is also satire at the same time. So you might have remembered, and I comment on this story all the time because it is one of the dumbest things Troy's ever done. And they went viral for it. They had probably 5 million people have seen this. It's called Undercover Cop Busted on YouTube. I don't need to play it. I just want to see 7 million views on this thing by a YouTube account called Doc Holiday. Doesn't even have a profile picture. It just says, Troy, Ohio Police Department wrongfully arrests man they attempted to solicit drugs from. Please subscribe. But this happened apparently around the year of 2018 is when the video went up. And it says here, coming from our not necessarily friends, but the good people at Miami County Bugle Caller. Memory lane. Remember when Troy cops were too dumb to frame an innocent drug dealer? Now, I want to set the stage before I read this a little bit further. Apparently, there were some posts of the gentleman who was arrested made before this that were the damning evidence. And I think eventually, from what I was told, they got him on false advertising.
What?
Or selling or attempting to sell false drugs or something like that. Because what he did is he knew it was undercover. I mean, looking at the guy, he looks like an Eminem impersonator. So that's their first sign that you're an undercover cop. And then they had their Ford Explorer parked over there. And everyone knows it. It's not like they have a bunch of them. And They dragged it out for the protest the other night, too. And for the tornado, they had that. That's their backup vehicle. And it was sitting there over at one of the park. I think it was Troy Park. And he walked up and he asked him if you're an undercover cop. And you'll never guess what the undercover cop said. He said yes.
He said yeah.
And then no. So anyway, the guy sold him or attempted to sell him a rosebuds or the flower. He was selling him flour. So Bugle Caller writes here, Troy. In the wake of protests going on across the country in response to the police murder of George Floyd, we here at the Miami Bugle Caller want to take a moment to remember more peaceful times. With images of police brutality popping up left and right across the nation, isn't it nice to remember when Troy PD was so dumb, so incompetent, that they couldn't manage a single sting operation? Despite their hundreds of hours of police training, albeit fewer hours than it takes to become a licensed cosmetologist, Troy police couldn't manage to bring down any real drug dealers, but instead managed to purchase some flowers. It doesn't take a genius to know that when a stranger contacts you through Facebook to pick up some of the green stuff, that they're almost definitely an undercover cop. Even more red flags are raised when the buyer suggests meeting at such an obvious location as Troy Community Park. Throughout this crisis of character in our country, we've seen many police officers go undercover and manage to incite riots while hiding their identity. Despite the urban legend, officers have no obligation to tell you they're an officer while undercover. That's a Breaking Bad joke. Apparently, training in Troy didn't get around to that, with the officer's eyes lighting up immediately when asked if he's a cop. Yeah, no, replied the officer in sheer stupidity that not even Barney Fife couldn't top. In an unconstitutional move for the police reading, unconstitutional means not in accordance with a political constitution, especially the U.S. Constitution, or with procedural rules. Police opted to take the phone of the suspect and delete any video evidence of the interaction. However, thanks to the lack of any brain power on the force, they neglected to realize there's a recently deleted folder in most smartphones, meaning the video wasn't actually erased. And then there's the moment an officer pulls a gun on the local flower peddler and the police embarrass her. Despite being only armed with dandelions and showing no visible or implied threat, officers pulled up, guns drawn at an innocent citizen. Police officers are so weak and scared in Troy that they can't handle a weed dealer, a drug that in many jurisdictions is now legal and is largely decriminalized in Ohio, without pulling a gun. Ultimately, this situation ended as a huge embarrassment for Troy PD, making the front page of Reddit that day. While we were lucky that the situation didn't end in violence, police across the country have been abusing their power to inflict violence on otherwise peaceful protesters. Officers across the country need to be held accountable. If you want to help, click here for resources on how to support the fight for equal rights for all Americans. And that truly is some of the best reporting we've seen this week. At the very end there, I do agree with most of it's satire, or they are embellishing it a little bit. I wouldn't call all the police force stupid here, but whatever that was, they definitely learned from it, I think. But at the end there, you don't have to be a murderer to be a bad cop. You can write someone a BS ticket that costs them the only $300 they have that week, or whatever the case is. That is being a bad cop. And that's why I don't get on this only some cops are bad, because reality is there's a nationwide training effort that needs to be made. Satire from the Bugle Caller. Love your work. Never take yourself too seriously and be willing to laugh at ourselves, learn from our mistakes, and move on. Sad news from Piqua here as J.C. Penney. I don't even know. What are you going to do, Nathan?
I don't know.
J.C. Penney's is closed in Piqua. They're going to be closing it. Stores expected to close in 10 to 16 weeks. The department store chain J.C. Penney announced its closure list, including its location at the Miami Valley Center Mall in Piqua, right at a time when they are trying to revitalize that mall. But what do you do? Because these stores back in the day essentially was what the mall revolved around, right?
Yeah, they're the anchor.
You know, J.C. Penney, Sears,
And,
Elder
now,
Beerman, Macy's.
I don't have anywhere to go buy pennies. It's crazy.
Ask the Troy PD. Maybe that, or maybe ask the flower peddler. Maybe he sells pennies on the side.
Oh, it's possible.
Including its location at the Miami Valley Center, J.C. Penney, located at 987 East Ash Street, was one of the 154 stores identified to close in the first phase of J.C. Penney's closures, following a comprehensive evaluation of its retail footprint and a careful analysis of Jeff Bezos and Amazon. store performance and future strategic fit for the company, according to a press release from JCPenney. Now, I expected their mall locations, but I don't know. I thought JCPenney would have held on a little bit longer, but it looks like COVID just sped it up. They've been in operation in Piqua since 1922, and the retail store was one of the original anchor stores of the Miami Valley Center Mall. And that's the problem with malls today, is they were centered around these anchor stores, the four corners of the mall, basically. And then within that, they would have other stores, and those big box stores, big department stores, I should say, would draw the people in there, and then they would find their other items. It was a hangout spot that just doesn't happen anymore. And I really wish them the best of luck up there. I don't know how they're going to plan that. There's a Piqua street closing. We can't get around to all of them. Troy introduced that portal last week, I think, that helps you see. If you go to their website, you can see all the street closings for Troy. But in Piqua, the 1300 block of Nicolin Avenue between Robinson Avenue and Lindsay Street will be closed starting 9 a.m. Wednesday, June 8th, and ending at 3 p.m. Friday, June 12th. So today, it was closed at 9 a.m. Wednesday, June 8th, and it's going to be ending 3 p.m. Friday, June 12th. For an emergency water service renewal. High Street between Wayne Street and Main Street will be closed every Thursday between 1 to 6:30 p.m. until September 10th for the Piqua Community Farmers Market, which opens from 3 to 6 p.m. each Thursday. Ours is like 7 to 12 in the morning or something on Saturday. That's interesting. I like the evening hours a little better. North County Road 25A at the railroad crossing will be closed between Monday, June 8th and Sunday, June 14th for a CSX panel replacement in the crossing. And Troy CSX closure actually is going to be off of 55 Staunton over by the new Marathon, over by the baseball fields. There at the railroad tracks, I believe they're probably going to be refreshing that crossing, if I had to guess. June 22nd, I believe, for 7 days it will be closed after that. So just a heads up here in Troy. Some local restaurants served up some strawberry donuts to kind of make up for the Strawberry Festival being canceled. They did the Red Water Fountain still this year for the 3 days of the usual festival time slot. Since the announcements of the cancellation of Troy Strawberry Festival, this coming from Dayton.com, a Tip City restaurant serving up strawberry donuts for a good cause. It was originally set to take place this last weekend, but many have mourned the loss of one of their favorite festival treats, the strawberry donuts. For years, the sales of these strawberry donuts have helped provide funding for the Troy High School Band and Troy Music Boosters. Now, without this important and yummy fundraiser, locals are finding other ways to support the band and give the people what they want. On Saturday, June 6th, Coldwater Cafe in Tip City served up some fresh strawberry donuts by the dozen. They began at 10 a.m. on Saturday. And I believe the Bakehouse did something as well. The donuts cost $12, and a portion of the profits from the strawberry donuts was given to the Troy High School Band and Music Boosters. It was really sad to hear that they wouldn't be getting... I don't know why it's a long line, but I would have done a week of strawberry donuts. Instead of trying to do 3 days, I still would have done the strawberry donut production. But maybe they just didn't have the funds to get the amount of ingredients usually required. I'm not sure. Fulton Farms, I caught the tail end of this yesterday. Fulton Farms held a Back to Our Roots event. I got there around 4:30 or so. I was picking up some summer sausage, some smoked cheddar, got a couple peppers while I was out there. I wanted to go to the You Pick Berries thing, but it was just too packed for me. They keep selling out. I think Wednesday's their next opportunity. They keep having to close the fields. They don't have any in the barn to sell. They just did really, really good strawberry sales this year because everyone still wanted to support them best they could without the festival happening. But Fulton Farms hosted an event to celebrate the beginning of the strawberry season. It was called Back to Our Roots, and they held that Saturday, June 6th and Sunday, June 7th. I was told it was rather lively Saturday, a little bit slower on Sunday, but whatever kid they had out there around 4 o'clock, they had a live musician out there. He could really sing. Some local musicians are hit and miss, but they all do it, just for the fun of it. Never, there's nothing wrong with going out there and making music, even if you're not the best artist in the world. It's all about doing what makes you happy. But he had a really good voice on him. I thought that was nice. They had a food tent, grilled bratwurst, pork chops, and veggies. They advised the CDC guidelines. Fulton Farms has been handling that very well out there. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife, they're recommending that Piqua remove the dam. Damn. This week, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Flatland Resources held its final stakeholder meeting with the Piqua City Commission on U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. feasibility study on local low-head dams in Piqua and Troy. It was during this virtual meeting the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service gave its recommendation to the city of Piqua that it should remove the low-head dam located behind the old Piqua Power Plant, located on South Main Street, County Road 25A, in the Great Miami River. The goal would be to return the stream to its natural elevations. They also noted that while the river would end up being smaller, there would still be water flowing through the city. From the previous stakeholder meetings, they received feedback from the community that the community wants this dam to be removed. And he noted increased opportunities for recreation was one of the desires that kept coming from the community. You guys, when you're out there trying to float on a kayak or a canoe and you've got to come across one of these dams, it's very comedic moment inbound. Damn it. You can't get past.
If I had the soundbite, I'd hit the laugh track right now.
I've got it.
There we go.
What did the fish say when he ran up against the seawall? Damn. Shut up. Anyway, so they're having some ideas. I don't know how it's going to affect our dam here in Troy. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point of removing ours, but that is the stopping point. There's that big stop sign on the railroad crossing in the Troy area here. And you've got to stop your canoe. You can't go further. But, of course, it's not all about canoeing. Dams are vital, so we'll see how that comes out. Something about a sleep study here. What is this? Growth in sleep studies help more people address issues. The growing use of home sleep studies, along with traditional sleep center testing, has allowed more people to identify and address issues that might affect both their sleep and, more generally, their health. When you have a patient complaining of snoring, sleepiness, fog on their brain, they can't think straight, or falling asleep at work or behind the wheel, and they are relatively healthy otherwise, a lot of times the physician will order a home study. I should get one of these done. I really should. First of all, my sleep pattern's all messed up, but what do you think, Nathan? Should we have a Troy Show sleep study? We'll just do a live stream of us sleeping, and then we'll have the listeners tell us.
You know, I've seen live streams of people sleeping. It's
weird.
It's a weird niche.
That exists, though, man. People make money off that.
Yeah.
That one guy sleeps on Twitch, which is that streaming service where you can have people like donate, and there's a voice to chat. So if you donate a certain amount of money, you can get your text audibly read by an AI. And so he'll try and do a sleep thing, and then someone will type just something absurd in there, just absolute, really hard on the headphone users, if you catch my drift, and he'll wake back up. It's really funny to watch. There's clips of it on YouTube, I think. Now, who's doing this? So Eileen Walker and Eva Cool, sleep technicians, review a sleep study at UVMC's Sleep Disorder Center. Maybe I'll have to give Upper Valley Medical Center over there a call. I could look into doing a sleep study. I think it would be helpful. A lot of people don't look at the finer aspects of their life like that. You know, when you're waking up tired every single day, fog on the brain, they described it so well there. I thought it was just the stress of being Troy's most popular talk show host, but maybe it's other things.
You know, you're not wrong.
Well, I mean, anymore.
I can't think of another one.
I can't tell you how many people reached out to us. Thank you for covering and giving us the full coverage. And I just do my thing here. I don't even know how to respond to stuff like that. I really don't. It flatters us and triggers my anti-socialing at the same time, and we do appreciate it. And I couldn't have got it done without yourself and other people running out stuff and wireless charging. And I'm sure there'll be many more things like that in the future. That's what I love about doing this. It's creative, and we can just keep going. Gets us involved. We're doing something impactful in the community. A Troy grad is heading to Air Force Academy with goals of being an astronaut. I know what Bill Burr would say here, but I won't steal his joke. When is F is for Family Season 4? When is that?
Should have been 2020. It's going to be sometime this year.
It's one of my favorites.
It's great.
Let's see here. What's the name? Here we go. The motto is a good match for new Troy graduate Ella Furlong for the way she challenged herself in high school and for her career goals as she heads to the U.S. Air Force Academy. The closer I've gotten to this goal of the U.S. Air Force Academy, the more I decided, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to be an astronaut, Furlong said. And if that doesn't happen, I might be lucky enough to work at NASA. Oh, don't set your goals so low.
Go for SpaceX. Yeah, yeah.
SpaceX. Or, well, she did say Space Force. All right. Now I'm on board again. But don't set your goals as low as NASA. Now, NASA's cool, okay? But
Dude,
seriously.
NASA's just getting rides by Elon Musk anymore.
Yeah, now they're begging, him to. But they had that successful launch. I got to watch that live
Amazing,
of
yeah.
SpaceX. Big moment. 9 years since we've done that.
We are now in the future.
And looks like Furlong here will be able to maybe pursue that one day because they're going to need more people. So Space Force, and my suggestion to you, if you really love NASA, I don't know why, but if you do, if that's what you want to do, by all means, go pursue that. But my advice to you, look at SpaceX. That would be the move, maybe Space Force. So that's cool to hear. It's always cool to hear local stuff like that and ambition out of people and drive. We need more of that. We need to stop focusing on is the medical marijuana dispensary or, can we do this or that? We need to just look towards the future. The next generation is going to be taking over. You all have had your time to live life the way you've wanted to for 50 or 60 years. The next generation has to take over. And a lot of you have done a good job at forwarding the next generation as well. So be proud of yourselves for that. Tourism Pass offers discount to attractions. Please come visit us, please. Come look at our historic stone. The National Aviation Heritage Area is offering a boarding pass in partnership with the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force Museum Foundation, and Waco Air Museum.
I always call it Waco.
Everyone says something different around here. They've really expanded. I'll give them that. It's an attraction now. I will give them that. Armstrong Air and Space Museum up there in Wapak, Dayton Aviation Heritage National Historical Park, Air Camp, Wright B. Flyer, Champaign Aviation Museum, and the Carillon Historical Park, Grimes Flying Lab, and Aviation Trails Parachute Museum. For a limited time, sign up for a free boarding pass and take advantage of discounts on rides, retail, flight experiences, and more. See a full list of participating sites at www.visit.naha.com/boarding-pass. Governor Mike DeWine has announced the reopening date for museums and attractions as Wednesday, June 10th. You can check those individual websites. That'll be cool. Those are some really cool attractions here in the area. And it'll be nice for them to get some business again after the COVID-19 shutdown, because that is, it's important to not lose history. Well, I'm out of water. I'm out of words for once for tonight. Thank you again to our special guest tonight, Kathi Roetter, the Executive Director of the Troy, Ohio Chamber of Commerce, telling us a little bit about the commerce, how it functions, what's going on through COVID-19, what their plans are for the future, making some distinctions for us tonight here as to the Chamber's role. We appreciate it. Welcome anytime here at the Troy Show. For our video switcher, for our call screener, we thank you very much. If you want to get in touch with us, beautifultroyshow@gmail.com. You can always call in live during the show. We start every Monday at 7 p.m., barring that there's no protest outside. 937-696-7572, the hub where you can find everything about us and everything Troy Show. That's thetroyshow.net. You can find our show notes over there as well. Drop us a like, a follow, if you would, on Facebook. Facebook.com/Beautiful Troy Show, so you can catch and see everything that we're doing in the community, really what everyone else is doing in the community. Our goal is to bring that to you. So we do the best that we can with the operation that we have here. Facebook.com/groups/Troy, Ohio Citizens, if you want to get a little bit more involved, if you don't want to talk to me, if you can't stand me, but you want to go see what other people's opinions are here in the city, we provide that platform for you over there. We don't get too involved with that one unless there's something that violates Facebook terms of service or whatever the case is. But you can find that at facebook.com/groups/Troy, Ohio Citizens. We'll catch you back here next Monday at 7 p.m. And remember, this is Troy on Air.